absolutely wet and rainy weather today. What is good to see with all these old mills is there's bustling small businesses within a vast majority of them. Brunswick Mill, according to the Manchester Evening News, has been earmarked for a £58 million development for 270 homes, which is this building right here. Just on this side of the canal as well, you've got Pollard Yard. Pollard Yard is a really great idea of using space to dump a load of containers, shipping containers, and turn them into small business rent spaces. I had a quick walk around. You've got people who have rented the space for music, what do you call it? Music rehearsals. You've got a lot of people here renting spaces for music rehearsals. You've got a lot of people, barbers, specific crafteries. You know, a great idea. And apparently there's a waiting list of a year to get one of these spaces. Howling weather today as well, literally nasty. So going forward with the project, over the next week or so, I'm going to be looking to create social media spaces, Facebook, YouTube, a few others, where a lot of this content will end up, Instagram as well, where a lot of this content will end up. And my plan is then to continue with the project and, you know, follow me along. So that's where a lot of these videos are going to end up. Good to see that the canals and the waterways have been renewed. As a child, I don't ever remember seeing barges on these canals. So to see that they have a clean-up crew that goes up and down and keeps the waterways working and moving is good to see these days. I've recently done a couple of barge days out where you're able to go along canals from South Manchester all the way down to Stretford and down into Cheshire, which was quite good. And it'd be good to see this sort of thing renewed here. As we go under this next bridge, it's almost like a dividing line of where the development has got caught up to. So you can see behind me, you've got the mills, and as we go through this next bridge into this tunnel, it's certainly a stark contrast to new builds, apartments, and a whole different look to what is beyond that tunnel. And to me, that is in a nutshell the changing face of Ancoats. The development will spread and we'll push further that way, and then we'll probably spread further into North Manchester itself. On my left you can see that the old buildings, those that can be fixed, do remain, and they're lovely, you know, in comparison to the small overpriced bed sits on my right. That's the New Islington Metrolink station. Little anecdote though, I used to think that New Islington was a made-up name given to the area to make it sound posher, all that stuff. But it turns out my great-gran used to actually say she was from New Islington. Again, to make herself sound posher, to make herself sound better than the area maybe. But great. It wasn't a made-up name. Such a difference. With more cranes building more things. And it's nice how they've kept original features at times to lend into the historic area. I think at this stage it's also worth pointing out, I'm not adverse, I'm not against the development, not at all. You know, I'm in the belief that Ancoats in the mid-90s was in a bad way, you know, in terms of population, in terms of you know, the lack of people living there, and certainly into the early millennium. When I used to work at Argos just over there, Ancoats was known as being really rough. They moved a lot of people there that weren't really from the area and didn't get the community spirit. But then it's that whole process of where would Ancoats be if we hadn't have done this? What would it have been? Where would it have ended up? How bad would it have got? Who's to say, really? It's just speculation, and you can only try and look at it, can't you? Think about it. Obviously this marina was not here when I was a lad. I used to live on the Card Room estate in the early 80s, which was just over this way, and this was not here. However, you can't disagree that the place looks really great. It's still got some work to be done, but in essence the place looks really great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a walk down here now, and then I'll give you a quick whistle stop around Robin. Now, where I used to live was just over there. Obviously that's gone now, and with the new homes that have gone up in its place. What have I got to say about that? I think a really great influence for me regarding Card Room is Len Grant's work and his particular book, Card Room Voices, which at the end, for the people that lived there, I think they were given a bum deal in terms of what was being offered to them, in terms of, you know, whether they were going to get a space in the new place. Some did, but I'm not sure all of them did. But I'm going to look into that further and see where we get with that. Some of them are quite heartbreaking stories. But you know, being here today, it's Sunday morning, and there's quite a hustle and bustle of young people going about the business, and really if it helped that area, if it has helped the area to revive itself, then sometimes that's what's needed, I think. Breezy down on the dock though. Okay, at this point, it's almost like this road junction is as far as the development has got to. You know? Pointing this way, you can see how it looks, and with the new builds, and there's still more to be done. But then we go to this side, you know, it's almost like the development ends. Incidentally, the canal I was at is just over this way. It's almost like this is the point they've got to. Is it going to spread further this way? I'm not sure. But it potentially could then develop further this way, and that yet remains to be seen. On this side, the development has spread further along and is pushing out a good probably half a K that way. But yeah, this is kind of where it reaches in terms of the housing itself. One thing is of note, there's hardly any parking. Lots of double yellow lines, but hardly any parking. So does that mean they're looking for people who are going to be more inner city dwellers? Most people have cars these days. We're not American, you know, we don't live in cities and just use tubes and, you know, metro and stuff like that. Although the metro link is in the area, but yeah, parking seems premium. See, parking at a premium. Oh look, crikey. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to push back up through this part of the estate and work my way back to the back ends of the mills and work my way back into a loop and finish off for the day. Ultimately at this stage it's still about collecting bits of B-roll, any footage I can, and just seeing different areas that I haven't seen. You can see two of the towers are under development right now. That one and this one, but yet this one remains. The one that remains is social housing, and I think the other two have been given over to the development companies. Still windy, still rainy, rat's day today. I mean, who knows how Ancoats is going to look again in another 10 years. I think it'll still have its parking problems though. If not worse. I mean, if I was living down here, they need to relax the rules on things like electric scooters, electric bikes, and it allow people to be mobile that way, which would reduce the need for all the parking space when space is already at a premium. Incidentally, I saw an article in the evening news this morning that said for people to live in Manchester and buy a home in Manchester, they need to be on at least 34k a year to be able to buy and live in Manchester itself, to be able to afford mortgages. That's based on average house prices. Typically the average British yearly wage, the average yearly salary is 24k. Was it 26? The average yearly salary is 26k. So you're looking at 10k above the national average, based on a number of old sources now, to be able to live in Manchester itself. it's funny, when I'm here I always find myself drawn back to this area of golden triangle of pubs: the Bank of England, the Falcon and the Bradford. And I think maybe it's kind of one of my favourite places of the whole thing. As I come past the Bank of England now, which could be a gold mine if someone was to take it and do it up, you know, potentially with the further developments that are going to push this way. To me, if I was like Daddy Warbucks, I'd scoop it, fix it, turn it into a modernised pub that does food, all the usual good stuff. And especially along here, where you still have a lot of companies that work in the region and do things. All these mills down along here are all full of smaller businesses, studios that still use the space. Now, people could even still be living in these. Now, some might say that this is more Mouse Platin than it is Ancoats, but you can see that the development hasn't yet to come this far north in terms of where it's headed. But it's whether the development will come this far or whether these houses will remain in situ. Will they go from being social housing, as they were historically, to being, you know, over to the populace? Now, whether those people in the homes get that whole kind of right to buy scheme that was quite popular, then that remains to be seen. But the development hasn't come this far yet. So I'm just coming into Manstead Walk. My dad used to live in one of these other flats here. I can't quite remember which one, but I've got a feeling it's one of these ones, or maybe the middle one. Can't remember. But yeah, he lived here for a few years, which is quite worthy, because literally his favourite Bradford pub is literally just about 100 metres that way. The Bradford. Back at the car. Didn't even touch my brew. Review. Oh yeah. Okay. So overall, not a bad walk around today. I feel I've got enough to wrap up this first phase of the project, which is obviously the changing phase of Ancoats. What I aim to display at the interim show next month is a series of images and an audio visual experience of Ancoats, as well as a trifold, which will then have links to all the social media that I'm going to put out over the next couple of weeks, to allow for people to follow the project in its various stages. Obviously, I'm going through some life changes. I am going to leave the forces later this year, so a lot of that will have an effect on this project and how it goes on. But I hope then to deliver this whole project into one fell swoop. And obviously the legacy of it all is giving something back, potentially, you know, reconnecting with the area, and being able to put on a small display in the Bradford, hopefully. I've still got to set that up. I've been in touch with Holtz's, the brewery, and I've heard nothing back. So hopefully I can get that moving. Worst case scenario, I'll just go to the manageress of the pub and see if she'd be willing to just to take some prints on. Even if it's just a small display, that to me is still me putting a cherry on the cake of what is a massive project and reconnecting them in the area. I think ultimately what I'm trying to do is reconnect with my dad, even though he's not here. I think that's probably the easiest way to describe it. And it took me a long time to get to this point in the journey of, the what and the why. And I think there we have it. Overall, a good day.